Good
Welcome,
evening.
team. What's going on, y'all? Hello. We'll give people some time to
Hello.
get on.
All right, people are starting to jump on. So, good evening, everybody. We are back for an exciting, um, but very relevant conversation today as we do our speaker series for the month of March. We have my partner in crime, Sonia Thomas. We have a very special guest who has been rocking with us since the pandemic, and Dr. Lawson. And then we got all of you guys who are tuned in, but not only tuned in, like exercising your ability to ask important questions, and we can have this great discussion that has affected many of us for the last year and a half, 2 years that we've been going through this pandemic.
Hey, everybody. I hope my internet cooperates. It's acting funny. Thank you, John, for having my back. Um, and that's my new grandbaby. We got a puppy that my son.
Okay,
Well, it ain't mine, John. Wait a minute. It's not mine. I'm just babysitting, but he's about to
come
leave.
on
But
now.
anyway, thanks, thanks to everybody that's joining us tonight. Good evening. And as John says, we're going to talk about a topic that is very important in our community. But I want to first start off, John. I don't know if you did this, if you told everybody the purpose of our speaker series. And that is to ensure that we have experts on this panel to talk about the things that keep parents awake at night. We have
Hmm.
our speaker series once a month. And thank you, Dr. Chanelle Lawson, who is also a White Creek Cobra.
Hmm.
Cobras don't die. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. So tell everybody a little bit about yourself. Like, I know you as Chanelle from high school, born and raised in Nashville, and we just want to get acquainted with our parents as they come in. Just tell us a little bit about yourself.
I will. It's a pleasure to do so. So I am Dr. Chanelle Lawson. I am a certified life coach. I'm a recovery counselor, which means I am a licensed clinical addictions counselor and substance use counselor. But to reduce stigma, I coined the phrase recovery counselor because that's what I teach is recovery. And I am also a certified clinical trauma professional. So trauma is my jam, right? Like that's my lane. That's what I enjoy talking about. That's what I enjoy educating on. My PhD is in Christian counseling. So I also have experience with spiritual support and chaplaincy, which is my absolute passion. But aside from trauma, I love just providing support to families in need, especially in the brown and black communities.
Wow. So guys, so we connected with Dr. Lawson during the pandemic, like shortly after school stopped. And we began to put together some partnerships, not only with Dr. Lawson, but Dr. Cummings and some others around the city, because we knew that the pandemic was about to be catastrophic for our children. And it has been a lot of trauma for a lot of people. And it's so fitting that we talk about those things tonight. And I believe that we have to address them. We have to be vulnerable to those things, to say that our community is struggling. And when America was, I don't know who said it, when America catches a cold, Black folk catch a virus, we catch the flu. And this issue is impacting so many, but a lot of our people were already experiencing trauma prior to the pandemic, and so now we've got layer up on layer of trauma. So thank you so much. And we'll just dive in. Like, most of our audience are parents of children, school age children, maybe some pre-K students, but
Hmm.
just kind of dive in. Like, do you believe that the pandemic has caused more trauma, and why? Like, what are some of the things you're seeing as we kind of turn the corner out of the pandemic? What are some of the things you're seeing?
So I think the pandemic was like the Santa Ana winds, and
Mhm.
it just kind of blew the cover off and expose trauma that was already there,
Mm-hmm.
and heightened trauma that was already there.
Mm-hmm.
Our communities have been impacted by trauma for generations, right? And like the pandemic came in and just exposed all these layers of trauma that were already existing. You know, we hear buzzwords like trauma informed learning and social emotional learning and diversity, equity, and inclusion. You know, those are like hot, trendy words now. And those have been issues, ongoing issues in Black and Brown communities for generations. Like, it's not nothing new. It's nothing that we have not experienced before. We just didn't have the support in place, and we still don't. I'm just gonna be real about it. We still don't. Because to consider yourself a trauma informed professional or a social emotional teacher, you have to know how to implement strategies to fidelity.
Mm. Can you wait a minute? Can you elaborate on something? Because all of a sudden, this word social emotional learning started
Yep. Come on
popping up
now.
a few years ago, right? Probably about 3 or 4 years ago, I started hearing the word, but most parents don't even know what we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Can
Mm-hmm.
you elaborate? What does that mean? What does social emotional learning mean, and why is it important?
So, social emotional learning is helping a youth be self aware, right? And in them developing self awareness, they will be more compassionate, more aware of others' thoughts, feelings, and behaviors, right?
Mm-hmm.
In counseling, we call it mindfulness,
Mm-hmm.
okay? Mindfulness and intentionality. The problem with social emotional learning is educators may not know how to properly provide the strategies
Mm-hmm.
or know how to really follow it to fidelity, right? Like, it's cool to have a youth be aware of themselves, be in touch with their body, be in touch with their emotions, be kind to their friends. Because I hear that a lot. Like, I have a 6-year-old, so you know, in his classroom, their friend, everybody's friend. Hey friend, hey friend. You know, be kind to their friends. But is that really is it really helping a student who may be very self-aware, but their home environment does not match up to that experience?
Wow. So I hear social emotional learning a lot, and you just really broke it down. It's about a self awareness.
Mm-hmm.
But how does that help trauma? I don't understand. Like, is that a really addressing the trauma that they're saying most of our kids are coming to school with?
Yep, Sonya. And once you finish, Dr. Laws, I want to dig into like the trauma with that kids are coming to school with.
Mm-hmm. I'm gonna say yes and no. Okay,
Okay.
being
Okay.
self-aware, I use mindfulness a lot in trauma healing to help individuals heal from childhood trauma, um, domestic violence. And the self-awareness is for them to be able to sit in their feelings, right?
Hmm.
I'm feeling angry. Okay, let's sit in your anger. Let's get to the
Hmm.
root of your anger.
Hmm.
Okay. Not avoiding it, but let's really sit in it, process through it, work through it, and heal from it. Okay.
Hmm.
So it's cool. Again, it's good that we're teaching our youth this, because it's teaching them compassion. And see, compassion is a big thing for me as a chaplain and
Hmm.
as a spiritual support, because it helps me to kind of identify and express empathy to others
Mhm.
who are going through situations I may not be familiar with.
Hmm.
So social emotional learning can be very effective if it's done properly and
Hmm.
individuals are properly trained.
Yeah.
Even in the counseling community, we are like certain counselors are required to take like 6 hours of trauma informed care.
Okay.
That's not enough.
It's
It's
not.
just not enough. You can't sit in a training class for 6 hours and say you are a trauma informed professional. You know,
Mm.
you can do more harm to an individual who's survived trauma, not knowing how to properly support them, than help. calling
Right.
yourself a trauma-informed professional and not being properly trained or not following it to fidelity.
Wow. John, you had a question or something you
Yeah.
wanted to say.
So, and Dr. Lawson, I met you at a critical time when the tornado tore through North
Mhm.
Nashville. And, there are a lot of homeowners, but there are a lot of renters. There are a lot of kids connected to the school. And families were just distraught on kind of the what's next. A week and a half later, the pandemic really hit with COVID and school just shut down. And this
Mhm.
had it never had happened in our lifetime. And so a lot of things, the plane was being built and flown at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I saw was social emotional learning. We made a lot of investments in the school, and just in your professional expertise, how do you think that investment is going with our kids, of like helping them with the trauma from tornadoes, helping them with the trauma from a global pandemic and people getting really sick?
I want to back it up before the tornadoes even, John.
Okay.
A few years ago, I did a series. It was a talk series, like a panel discussion sort of, at the Bordeaux Library. And that panel discussion came on the heels of the floods. Y'all remember the floods of
Yeah, remember the
2010?
floods?
Yep,
Yes.
2010.
And how those floods impacted North Nashville,
Mhm.
displaced families lost their homes. And because North Nashville is who raised me,
Mhm.
right? I felt it was my duty to give back to that community and just really just let's talk about it. And that was the name of the talk point. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about how this has impacted our community. Let's talk about how it's impacted the families of this community. And really, that community has been traumatized since 2010.
Yes.
That natural disaster changed the face of North Nashville,
Mhm.
changed those
Yeah,
families.
I agree.
You
It
know,
still looks it never got better.
it never got back. The community never recovered.
Hmm.
Mhm.
That's what trauma informed care is. That's what being trauma informed is recovery. Recovery, repair, and healing. And that community has never recovered, it's never repaired, and it never healed. And that's why what's going on in that community now is going on. But I digress from that topic. I digress from that for a moment. But it's still very relevant because schools are an important part of the community. It's an
Yeah.
important pillar of the community. It's as important as churches, hospitals, grocery stores, banks. Those are all important institutions in a community. And when those institutions are not fully flourishing, the
Mhm.
community dies.
Yeah. And I mean that's what we're seeing. We're
Mm-hmm.
seeing we're seeing our people die. And
Mm-hmm.
I just,
Mm-hmm.
just can't help but to think about like this social, this SEL, as parents may see, your social emotional learning, like, is it really helping? And is it something that is being talked about and not necessarily
Mm-hmm.
being implemented? And as John said, there's a lot of money that is going into that. And I don't think parents even know how it is supposed to impact their child. Like, what should I be looking for? Like, what are the outcomes that I should be looking at? Because when I think about it, John, suspensions are not down,
Not
right?
at all.
Like kids
Mm-hmm.
are still being suspended, and I would think like if we had things in place for social emotional learning, that would kind of curve some of those things, but it doesn't seem
Mm-hmm.
to. But let's hop real quick. Let's shout out some of our parents, John, as they've come in. Shout out to Miss Fuquay and Miss
Yes.
Martin, Mr. Driver,
Scotty
Scotty
Too
Too
Hottie.
Hotty. You can call him out, John. Go
Mm-hmm.
ahead. I ain't gonna
Yep, I
hog.
see Miss Williams, who has been working with some of our organizers for the past week. She signed on. Miss Bennett, Miss Fitzgerald, who has just asked the question that has remained in my heart. What's next? We got Mr. Moore. We got Miss Offit, who came from one of our third or fourth class. We got Miss Sweat, who is just our champion. And we have our very own Thomas Driver.
All right, y'all. So shout out. So we have Dr. Lawson here talking about mental health, and I'm very excited about talking about this subject. And so we got a question here. It says East does not help with social emotional learning. So that was a comment from Miss Taylor.
And
And
Sandra, that's
go
that's
ahead.
kind of what I want to get into, because
Mhm.
I think as parents in the last budget, a lot of parents were thinking, we had the social emotional learning centers that was
Mhm.
more elementary,
Mhm.
and there was support across K through 12. And
Mhm.
as this one parent, and we didn't start with this, she just jumps on, and thank you, Miss Taylor, for being honest. She was like, East does not
Mhm.
help with social emotional learning.
Mhm. And they should be. That is a district budgeted item, and I think we're seeing why this may not be working. I don't think that there
Mhm.
is consistency across the board. Um, and we need to make sure that all schools, like this is a district budget item, all the schools are receiving the same quality, and it doesn't look like it. And what I would say, Miss Taylor, is to ask your principal what social emotional
Mhm.
learning looks like at that school. How do you tap into it? How, what outcomes should you see with your child? What are they doing on a day-to-day basis? Question everything and everybody.
And how is it connected with the budget? Do they even have the
Mhm.
funds? Because maybe they may say, hey, we thought about this, but
Mhm.
we never received the funds. And that's just good information for parents to know. And so we can make sure we put our money where our health is, not our mouth, put our
Mhm.
money where our health is.
But you know what?
Mhm.
Dr. Lawson and I were talking about this the other day. It's not enough just to have it in the schools, but how do we make sure that the whole family unit is taken care of? And I mean, I want to dive into that because we got parents on here who took the time out of their busy night. We want to make sure that we're helping them because people don't look like what they done been through.
Come on now.
And
Mhm.
I just
Mhm.
want to sit right there for a minute. Let's talk about the family unit and let's talk about mental health in the school and at home. What should that look like? What should we want to be true about mental health in school and home?
I want to go back to SEL for a moment because think about
Okay.
what I said. It is right. It's like teaching that youth, and again, SEL is not just for at risk youth. I really do
Mhm.
not. Can we just do away with that term? I don't like at risk and
Yes.
Mhm.
um what targeted population. Those are so stigmatizing to me, and I try to reduce stigma in any way possible.
Mhm.
Um, I just don't like that term. But the social emotional learning is for every student. It's for every student in that building. It's not just for at-risk youth. It is not a strategy to use as a deterrent for in-school suspension or out-of-school suspension.
Mhm.
Right? It should be. That's why I'm saying about the fidelity. It's supposed to be implemented. Period. It's
Period.
teaching those youth how to. Period. Not when a child comes in contact with another child and maybe have conflict. No, that's what mediation is for, right? Like
Mhm.
it should that strategy should be used as
Mhm. Mhm.
an environmental strategy in that school. But for as far as families, I believe in family healing. And I believe in family healing because that's how communities heal,
Yes.
right?
Mm.
And
Yes.
I'm big on community healing and community resilience. And a lot of that passion came from watching my own community kind of lose its heart, you
Mhm.
know?
Yes.
But it's great that Johnny is learning social emotional learning in school and being able to um, advocate for himself, be self-aware
Mhm.
of his person and his body, right?
Right.
But what about if Johnny goes home and he's trying to advocate for himself and be aware of himself to mom, and mom is like, "You don't talk back to me,"
Right.
Mhm.
Right.
because mom don't understand social emotional learning, right?
Right.
So it really must include a parental unit or a family unit where they're educating the family on social emotional learning and what it looks like.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So
And
my
this,
question to the audience is how many of you understood social emotional learning before tonight? Like how many of you knew what that was? Did anybody know what that was? We'll be waiting as we're talking, but that's the question. Um Before tonight, did you even know what it was? You might not still understand it fully, but Dr. Lawson has articulated so well. It's a good start for us to learn. But
Yeah,
right there with the family, I mean, John, go ahead, jump in. This is this
yeah.
is this is hot.
And
This is a
Miss
hot topic.
Yeah, and Miss Taylor could be one of our guest panelists because she says she understands it, but she also realizes that it's not there. I think Miss Taylor has been on a couple. I think she has a background in healthcare, and so she knew what to look for. But I'm gonna tell you, so many times, the
Mm-hmm.
majority of our families, not because they should know, because it was never taught to us. And so when we use these buzzwords, social emotional learning, at risk, like people, parents in
Mm-hmm.
general, don't even know what to look for to see if they're getting it, right? Like it's like you said, I when you
Mm-hmm.
pay for something, you pay for a steak dinner, but they gave you peanut butter and jelly. You like, no, like, because I know what a steak looks and tastes like, I want my steak. A lot of times we're not teaching our parents what to even look for.
Yeah, and
While
Mm-hmm.
we're getting let me pull these up.
yeah.
Miss Taylor, she started off with I did.
Mhm,
Miss Sweat said I didn't.
mhm.
Miss Fuquay said I didn't. Thomas says nope. And then Miss Taylor says, I have a few children that have IEPs that I'm very involved in. Miss Moore says, I didn't. I'm glad you guys are speaking on it. Miss Fitzgerald, somewhat. So the consensus as we keep going down is
Mhm.
that we don't know. And again, if a parent is on here at 6 o'clock at night listening to this show, they care, they're involved, they want to know more, and they realize when we were talking about mental health, they was like, let me know.
Yeah, yeah. I'm struggling with something. I'm struggling, and maybe you guys can help. I'm struggling. A lot of our children, they do have empathy,
Mm-hmm.
but when you are
Hmm.
going through so much, you do need the space to be able to say what you're going through. And I think that they're at home, they go to school, wherever, locked up with locked up emotions. And so, as parents, Dr. Lawson, what are some of the things we can do? Because they didn't come with a manual. And I
Mm-hmm.
have four of them. They're all different. They all have their different issues. What are some of the things that we can do to help our kids address trauma? Like creating the space for them to feel comfortable and those types of things.
I would say definitely allowing them to speak an emotion, right? Speak it. I have a 6-year-old. I call him my menopause baby because he truly is a menopause baby. I have a 26-year-old, a 21-year-old, and then I have my little surprise guy. He's 6. And parenting him it doesn't look like it looked parenting my older ones because I was a younger mother, right?
Mhm,
And
mhm,
I didn't have the skill set then that I have now.
mhm,
So I do allow him to be very self-aware. And I have to allow that because he has a sensory processing disorder. So he
mhm,
processes things different, right?
mhm,
And so
mhm,
I have to allow him to be aware of his body, be aware of his emotions, be able to speak his emotions. And I, as a parent, have to be able to accept it, right?
mhm.
Like if he is saying no, back in my day, no was not, you didn't say no to your parents.
You better
It
not
was
say no.
because I said so. You do
Right,
it because
right,
no will get you placed into next week. Right, like
right up under the
quickly.
car. Right up under the car.
Right. So I had to check myself as a parent, right? Like I had to say, okay, I'm advocating for this child to be able to use his words. I have to respect when he's using his words. I
Mhm,
can't push him out of his no because I want him to do something I'm desiring him to do.
mhm,
And
mhm,
it does take a shift for parents. Like it really takes a shift for us. It shifts our belief system. It shifts how our parenting style is rooted, you know.
yeah.
Um, and we have to accept and respect that advocacy that child is placing for themselves and them being self-aware of their body and their emotions and feelings and thoughts.
Yeah. So for example, a lot of people have teenagers. So, that's when it kind of gets really, really hard, right? When you got a teenager that won't come in the house when they're supposed to, you know, you say do something, they know look totally different than a 2-year-old know.
Yes, absolutely.
Uh, and I want to really speak to that for a lot of our parents who may be dealing with this, and there could be something underlying happening there. And can we talk about that a little bit?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what if you have that
Mm-hmm.
teenager who is like, no, no, I ain't
Mm-hmm.
gonna do it.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the same thing?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
What I have learned, and I've learned this even with my 6-year-old,
Mm-hmm.
I have to put myself in, okay, when I'm in my no, right? Because we get in our nose too as parents, right?
Yep.
I have to, I don't want anybody pushing me out of my no. So when I'm in my no, I have to sit in it. So I have to extend that same grace to him.
Okay.
Right. I have to allow him to sit in his no. And then we later come back and talk about it. Like, I don't leave it unresolved. I really process things with my 6-year-old on a level he can understand, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But I definitely do that processing with him because I want him to be self-aware.
So are you saying
In my house,
evaluate the situation, like something could be going on with the child? So take a moment, and sometimes we pop off.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we can. Listen. I told you parenting at 21 and 26 was different. It was different. They got a very different mother, because and again, because I was a 19-year-old mother, and I was 22 having my 21-year-old. So I was a very young woman, young woman having kids, and so and you're right, Sonia, it don't come with a handbook. Like, we don't know. We're feeling our way through parenting,
We are feeling our way.
So parenting them was, we feeling our way, and they got parented different than how I parent my 6-year-old. And it's because we were figuring each other out. Really, we were basically growing up together. Me and my oldest son, he's about to be 30. I'm 45. We ain't too much away from each other,
Right.
But I'm saying that to say that sometimes we have to check our own, again, us being self-aware of our own behaviors, thoughts, feelings, body, so that we can create an environment where it's not resistance.
And what if we do find ourselves in a space where there is resistance? Are there any tips? Because what I'm finding is a lot of parents really deep issues with their adult children, and there is no help. There's no help. And so when you're at that point of resistance and you don't know how to get out of it, like, are there resources? Are there tactics? Is it too late? Like, yeah, I'm trying to help some folk.
Come up with ground rules. I've done this with families. Like, come up with ground rules for the family, right? Especially families that have lacking communication, come up with a communication log. I had one family just get a composition notebook from the Dollar General store. And if y'all can't talk to each other, write it out. Just write out what you want to say to each other until you can build up to where you can have conversation, right?
Yes. And don't be afraid to get help.
Don't be afraid. Listen, I'm coming to that. I'm coming to that. I'm talking about things we can do in the home just as parents, right? It is okay for us to walk away. I've learned to do that. If I see the situation getting too escalated where resistance is about to happen, I'll let go and I'll walk away. I'll walk away and then later come back and we can talk when cooler heads prevail. Right?
Cool heads.
But as far as adult children, what we have to remember about adult children.
Our teenagers.
Adult children is,
I'm talking about our teenagers. I'm sorry, I called them young adults, but I'm talking about our teenagers still in school.
Okay. Well, we have to remember that we've been their age. We have to remember that we've been their age, and being a teen now looks completely different than it did when I was a teenager in the 90s. They have everything's coming to them at super fast speed. Everything.
Yeah.
They're dealing with issues that we just did not have to deal with. And sometimes we have to check our own biases and beliefs about parenting and where our parenting is rooted, right? And we have to shift sometimes.
Yeah. That is some good advice. I see some people are saying, they're asking questions. And I want to answer some of these questions. Let's see here. Fatine could put, Crystal Evans said that she needs a Black therapist for her daughter, a Black female therapist. Is there a difference between a counselor and a therapist?
It depends on the credential. That's what the difference is. It depends on the credential. So like I'm a life coach and a counselor, but I do partner with several licensed professional counselor organizations. I can put their resource in the chat if that's available. Like I can do that.
Yes, that would be great.
And because I believe in, I'm just going to flat foot say it, clinicians of color serving our babies.
I do too. I think it's very important that they see us in that light, and that they're able to relate to the people in whom they're talking to, and those people are able to see them in a different way. And I think that is so important. I totally agree. There was another question. Ms. Marvin said that the system needs to be empathetic towards kids with sensory issues and possibly better trained. You are absolutely right.
My son has an IEP also. And in October, I was involved. We both were involved in a car accident. And the car accident totaled my car. I ended up having to be life flighted. Well, the ambulance took me to the local hospital. The local hospital was not a trauma center, so that I had to be life flighted to Skyline. And the whole experience for this baby was traumatic, right?
Right.
So he went to school. He started showing behaviors in school. And I'm listening to certain words that the principal is, because she's calling me every day with something. And I'm listening to certain words that are being used. Words like he's trying to escape, it's not safe. He's not creating safety. And so, of course, my mind automatically goes to he's 6. And these words are used when you're probably trying to push a child out the door, when you're using words like he's trying to escape, he's not in an environment of safety. He's not creating safety. And so I called absolutely. And so I called an IEP meeting and we had a discussion about it. And I had all of our supports on there. Like I had his godmother, who was a registered behavior therapist. I had his father. I had all of our supports at the IEP meeting. And I should have called you, Sonia. But
next time do.
I had to really process it with the professionals at the school. I'm like, the behaviors that you're saying he's doing are behaviors of someone who's experienced trauma. These are anxiety responses in a 6-year-old.
Yes.
And so we had to revise his IEP, because what was not going to happen was y'all were not going to label my child. Y'all were not going to put him on a behavior plan because something happened to him.
Yes.
Right. That's what trauma is. Something happens to you.
And we are not what happens to us.
We are not what happens to us.
Oh, we are. I'm sorry that did something to my spirit.
Yeah.
We are not what happens to us.
We are not.
You got a child with an IEP. Imagine the thousands of children with trauma that are being labeled as bad and they not doing right and they interrupting my class. Because now we got laws, y'all, where teachers can put your child out of class because they feel like they're disrupting. But that could be a trauma response.
It most definitely can be a trauma response. Anytime I did an assessment, or anytime I do it, because I don't see as many youth now, but anytime I did an assessment on youth, I always did a trauma assessment. Always. I'm very slow to give an ADHD diagnosis because trauma can look a lot like ADHD. Trauma can look a lot like anxiety. Trauma can look a lot like depression. So I always do a trauma screening, the ACEs assessment.
Yes. Yes.
And you're right. I had one youth that I served, because I worked with the Indiana Department of Child Services for years. I was a contractor with them. So I worked with youth in need of support for several years. And I remember one case in particular where this child was, they kept prolonging his probation case because of marijuana. And when I tell you, when I did his assessment and it was just compound trauma in the house, I was like, you know what? Listen, this child is trying to cope the best that he can.
Mm-hmm.
He is involved in community violence. Gangs are outside his door.
Mm-hmm.
Gun violence is all around him. His mother is a victim of domestic violence, right? Like, I mean, it just compound trauma.
Mm-hmm.
And y'all want him to show up in school and make good grades.
Mm-hmm.
He's got to go through all of this, step through all of these layers, all of this trauma before he even leaves his house in the morning to get on the bus to go to school.
You got to walk right past it.
Walk right past it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I am very, but I just, those are the things that I take issue with, Sonia. Like, I take issue with that. Like, I'm really about meeting people in where they are. Meet them where they are and stand with them where they are.
Yes. Yes. And thank you for that. Because everybody's trauma don't look the same. When I was hearing you say that, everybody's trauma doesn't look the same. And so who are we to judge what traumatizes a child? Who are we to judge that? And some of the parents that want the listing of Black male counselors and female counselors, we will get something posted up for you guys to make sure that you have access to those resources. These questions that you're asking is going to allow us to put together some links for you guys. So we will make sure that we get. And I think Dr. Lawson is trying to drop a link. Drop a link or two to some resources. But we also have a shortage. We were talking the other night about the shortage of counselors and therapists around Nashville and around the country. And I think we're in a state of emergency when it comes to mental health. You just never know when it's going to touch your house. And
absolutely,
it's something that I am hoping that we look at as something as that we can do some preventative actions around and make it the norm. And let's talk about that a little bit. The stigma of going to counseling. Like, if you ain't got you no couch in Hollywood, you ain't doing nothing. And we need to be having that kind of slogan going around here in our city. And talk about that.
For sure. Counseling and talking outside the house have been stigmatized for generations, right? Like, you don't talk outside my house. You don't talk about what goes on in the house stays in the house, right? But gone are those days. How contradictory is that? How can we tell children to be aware of their person and their emotions and their thoughts and their behaviors, but then you can't talk outside my house? Don't tell what's going on inside of my house. That is just contradicting everything that we're advocating for them to do. And there is a shortage of behavioral health providers, quality behavioral health providers, right? And there's a shortage of that. There's a shortage of substance use and addictions providers, especially ones of color. We need more clinicians that look like us.
Yes, we do. It sounds like we need to advocate for that on a higher level. Like I said, this is an emergency. I'm seeing that we're in the urgent bucket when it comes to mental health. I've experienced that in my family, needing to reach out to someone to help people in my family, and it was a nightmare trying to access quality, as you say, healthcare, people that can meet the needs of family members. And I know that people have been advocating for more counselors in schools. And I'm glad that we're talking about this because parents can understand now, like, why are they asking for more counselors in school?
Mm-hmm.
But we need to, be careful of what kind of counselors we're asking for in schools. We need to know what we're asking for, and we need to know what we want them to provide.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Because not every counselor and not every therapist is going to be a good fit. Just like
No.
we're not, every doctor is not a good fit for us, right?
We're not talking about
And
the
you got
school
to think,
counselors, right?
no, I'm talking about therapist counselors outside of school and inside of school.
But in
They're not
school,
going to be a good fit.
but in school, we got school counselors. Are they equipped to handle the things that we're talking about?
They should have taken training. Yes, they should have
Okay.
gone through formal training to be school counselors.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But they're not mental health counselors, right?
But again, John said it earlier. No, they should be. They should
Okay.
be. There's a program for school counselors. Yeah.
Okay.
John said it best though. I think we need to know where the dollars are going. What does that look like for the school counselor to be at the school? What does that look like? Are they doing groups once a week?
Mm-hmm.
Because I was trying to partner with the school system in Indianapolis to go in and provide substance use groups once a week.
Mm-hmm.
So are they providing groups once a week? Are they doing small groups with kids? Like, what does that look like? And I think that is what will help parents out, like really asking those questions. Like, what is the school counselor's role? You have a right to ask that. What is the school counselor's role? How often do they meet with students? What are some of the topics that they talk about? What are some things I can do at home to help support them?
Yes. Question everything. Question everybody. Ask those questions, parents. Ask those questions. So when they call you and say that your son is not acting right in school, then ask to speak to the school counselor to get some help, to get some resources. Because that's what they're there for. And it's going to be important that you ask to see what they actually present at the school. Like, what do they have? Maybe you need to go somewhere else to another school who actually has the programs that fit your child. That's very important to make sure that the school is a good fit all the way around. And that is educating your children and making sure that there's a culture and also resources for your child. There was a question that someone asked about their student with a disability. And I am trying to find that question. Somebody said they need help over at East. What's going on over there at East? Do I I'm sorry, y'all. My internet is acting crazy tonight. So going in and out. But somebody asked a question, and I am trying to find it. Somebody said we're not our circumstance. You got that right. We are not the things that we've been through. We are not the things that we've been through. Ms. Moppin says, at my daughter's school, I feel like it's a joke. Are you okay? Yes. Okay, go to class. DuPont Hadley treats mental health like a joke. Wow. They can care less about IEPs, your children's feelings, staff bullying so much. Wow. Ask all the things, act like the FBI on him. That's right. But Miss Dr. Lawson, I want to give you a few minutes to talk about some of the initiatives that you have been working on. You shared some with me, and I want to give you the opportunity to talk about them. I was so excited to read them. So go right ahead and give you this time.
Well, thank you so much. My current initiative is doing trauma-informed training, providing support, providing resources to communities, specifically the 37208 zip code, because that, again, North Nashville is who raised me. I'm a North Nashville girl through and through. I'm from Bordeaux. Not Botto. I'm from Botto. But And I'm passionate about that community. So my current initiative is a trauma informed initiative, bridging the gap and bringing partnership with various organizations to help support that community and heal that community. Because again, that community has the landscape of that community changed in 2010 with the floods, and it's just been one traumatic event after another. I also work with churches on being trauma informed and recovery informed, because churches are pillars of the community and it's where a lot of people go for help and healing. And sometimes faith leaders just don't know how to support individuals that are in need of recovery. So I do offer that training as well. And again, I'm a life coach and I'm a recovery counselor. And I'm currently accepting life coaching clients. So in life coaching, I absolutely love because it creates forward movement. With counseling, you do a lot of processing of the past, right? But with coaching, the way I explain coaching to my clients is just like a football coach. A football coach is going to give you plays in practice to go out on the field on game day and run the plays. So that's what life coaching is. I give you strategies to create forward movement in your life when you're feeling stuck or feeling unmotivated or feeling like that, you're just not making any movement progress. And those are just some of the things I'm working on. I'm really excited about the trauma informed initiative because I feel like it is needed in so many Black communities throughout the United States. Like what's going on in Nashville is going on in several cities. I mean, you just pick a city and that's what's going on in that city, like Memphis, Philadelphia is going on in so many cities. And it's because we don't have resource and support.
Yes, yes. So I am committed to working with you on your initiatives and bringing our parents into the fold and seeing how we can help them. We've heard them loud and clear as our organizers listen to our parents one on one and they talk about what's keeping them awake at night. We've realized that we have a duty to ensure that our parents have access to professionals such as you. And so you and I will work with the team to try to figure out what we can do as partners to ensure that the parents of Nashville PROPEL, who are building a movement to demand better for their children, can also demand better for themselves. And in closing, do you have anything to say in closing? I'm really like overwhelmed with joy that we did this. It's been a long time coming. I mean, from the feedback from the parents, like as you can see, that's going through the screen, a lot of the parents really needed this tonight.
Parents need the support. I am a parent. I understand. I was fortunate enough to have my supports on that IEP call with me. We need that support.
Yes.
And again, the pandemic just snatched the curtain back like the great Oz, right? Yep. Like it just snatched the curtain back on all these disparities in our community that were already there, been there for generations. But it just exposed them all. Yeah. And it compounded trauma because now you got kids trying to learn at home. You got parents trying to be the teacher. And it was just a very traumatic experience for everybody. Yes. Everybody on top of just day-to-day functioning.
Yes.
So what I would like to leave the parents with on tonight is to find supports, paid supports, unbiased supports. Find supports, people that will be in your corner, people that will help you learn to advocate for yourself. Social emotional learning don't just end with the kids. We can use it too.
Yes.
We can use it too. So just you heal yourself so that you will be able to heal your children, so that you will be able to heal the community.
Yes. Ms. Taylor says she is a mother of 12 and it's not easy at all. And shout out to you, a mother of 12. I'm sure there's a lot of trauma, a lot of things And we're gonna. I think the partnership is gonna allow us to provide some support. We're gonna drop some resources on this Facebook page for some counseling resources. But we have to come to the end tonight, and I hate it that we got to come to the end. Let's see. Did you drop that? Oh, somebody got no chain. Oh, somebody is. Oh, Rhea is going faster than I can read. But we're going to drop some resources in the chat, some recommendations by Dr. Lawson to make sure that you guys have access um, to get the things that you need. And it's hard. It's really hard. But we wanted to make sure that we created a space where we could talk about this tonight. And this won't be the last time that we talk about mental health. And I'm not sure if my internet is working right
Nope,
now.
it is working. Can I just tell you guys, I went behind the scenes a little bit. It has been a
Testing. Is my internet working? Can you hear me, Dr. Lawson? Okay,
Yeah, we
great.
can hear you.
Okay, great. All right.
yeah.
Look, before it shut all the way down, the internet is undefeated. I'm going to end on this note. Thank you guys for joining us tonight. Don't forget our weekly programming with our updates on Monday, and then Access Denied at 11 a.m. On Wednesday. So thank you, Dr. Lawson. Thank you, powerful parents.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, team. And I will see you guys later. Good night.
Good night.